All right, Jake, let's go ahead and get into some college football. We're less than a week away from the conference championship weekend, but this past weekend certainly shook things up quite a bit. The biggest story was the LSU Tigers shocking the number 6 ranked Gators in the Swamp 37-34. This probably eliminated the Gators from playoff contention, but we'll see. Even if they were to beat up Alabama, and it's going to open the door for some other teams. The college football playoff rankings might make that interesting. We'll talk about those in a minute. But we also, we had Alabama going ahead and putting away Arkansas. North Carolina handed Miami a pretty historic beatdown, and Auburn did fire Gus Malzahn. So we've got the rankings, but we're going to go ahead and start with the weekend's action itself. So let's go ahead and start there, Drink. What did you see? What stood out to you the most from a pretty wild weekend overall?
All right. Well, hey, listen, before we get into the entree, you got to get the appetizer, and here you go.
Bloomin' onion.
The blooming onion, you know what I'm saying? Free on Veterans Day. But listen, I'd like to introduce everybody to the newest episode of On the Drink of Wisdom. It's called Scholarship Check. And listen, folks, bear with me. I had a hard time picking this one. I didn't know if I wanted to go with the Arizona Wildcats or if I want to go with the Miami Hurricanes. Both was well deserving of this award. But with that said, I had to go Arizona. Listen, for a number of reasons. First of all, Arizona State, your rival that you share the state with, was 0-2. They only played 2 games to that point. I think you only played like 5. But still, that ain't it. Another thing, at least Miami was playing another ranked team with some respect on their name. I'm not giving them an excuse. I'm just saying the factors was a little bit different. But Arizona, Kevin Sumlin, Wildcats, Pac-12, this ain't it.
Just quick context: Arizona State defeated Arizona 70-7 on a Friday night, resulting in the firing of Kevin Sumlin.
I was going to get to that.
People might start wondering what we're talking about here. I'm just trying to catch them up to speed.
You're right. That's why you do what you do.
Starting to wonder a little.
You know. If you know, you know. But listen, I want to know how many players on that team was on scholarship. Because listen, I seen the end of that game, and the first thing I thought is Kevin Sumlin is getting fired again. There's no way you bring back a coach that get beat 70-7 in the rivalry game. No. Kevin Sumlin, what the hell are you doing? But listen, here's the deal. You know why I wasn't too worried? Because I had got a call from Nick, and Nick said we got one spot opening up on our analyst crew since Butch Jones just got hired as the head coach of Arkansas State. So he had asked me, should we go with Kevin Sumlin? I said, He said, should we go with Muschamp? Or should we go with Malzahn? And you know how I felt about that one. We're gonna take Malzahn. He the most innovative out of all 3. But Nick hung up the phone and he gonna do what he gonna do because he the GOAT. Listen, you just said it. You look at the box score. 7 turnovers? Did y'all even practice? This ain't a game. We're talking about practice. I'm trying to understand how you get beat so bad as a Division I Power 5 team.
Turn the ball over 7 times. That's a good start.
Right. And losing. Right. And so here I am trying to tell people how teams like Coastal Carolina and Cincinnati and BYU and, what up, Tulsa and San Jose State, these group of 5 teams that's in the top 25 don't belong. And then I get smacked with a Power 5 team. Not saying Arizona was good, but come on, man. You do get Division I talent. You do recruit Division I players. What are we doing here? And Kevin Sumlin got fired before the confetti could get off the field. He was fired. I know he was over there with his headset on thinking, I don't know how I'm going to break this to anybody. His wife probably was at home babe, I send the box.
Sorry,
I just send the boxes over to your office. I get the kids to go ahead and pack up their rooms. Because you knew what time it was. I don't know where Kevin Sumlin go from here, but I'm going to say this. That ain't going to cut it. Arizona, It's time to just put the rest of the roster in rice. Let's go ahead and soak up that and see where you go from here. I don't even know who the hell will want the job. It got to be some coach off somewhere, Wyoming, something like that. Coach in the middle of nowhere that don't really like his life. Come on over to Arizona. But yeah, that's unacceptable. So I want to get that out first. Arizona scholarships check. But shouts out to Herm Edwards. Got the Sun Devils out here doing what they do. Hey, shouts out to him. Much respect to what Arizona got going on and everything that they do. Holla at your boy, Sun Devils. Now, let's roll over to some of that action, baby. And we got to talk about that action. First and foremost, we got to talk about what happened in the swamp. And I ain't talking about no alligator coming out eating people because the alligator got smashed in the eye. But this team, defending champs, probably the worst defending champs you ever going to see in college football history, but nonetheless, defending champs, the Louisiana State Tigers, led by Ed Orgeron. Go Tigers. Been pretty disappointing this season. We seen it all. We never seen defending champ be this disappointing. I mean, my God, I think they have been the underdog in every game since the first 2 games of the season. It's terrible down there. It's pretty bad on both sides of the ball. They go down to the swamp. Now, here's the deal. We talked about this Friday. This game was supposed to be somewhat of a measuring stick for Florida. We seen what Alabama did. Alabama got them out of there in the first half. That game was over by halftime. So you had to believe, even if you don't believe Florida is as good as Alabama, you had to believe that Florida was good enough to get LSU out of here. The reason you had to believe that is because Dan Mullins believed that when he decided to hold out his star tight end, and that ended up costing them. Here's the deal. I understand this is SEC. LSU got a lot of talent on that team, but that talent was not made to beat Florida in the swamp on Saturday night. That talent is supposed to be brewing for the future. How do I know this? I just watched them play Alabama. That talent did not even want to be on the field with Alabama by the third quarter. So I had to think the same thing about Florida. Florida is out here, running their mouth like, oh, well, I don't know what made Alabama think they're going to win, why it's such a shoe-in. Our offense is just as good as theirs, and their defense is still suspect. You still want to talk about suspect defense, Florida? We still want to talk about that? Let your boy know. Because it was a whole lot of suspect activities out there. We had all types of police ready to lock up some suspects. Because your offense was suspect. Your defense was suspect. Field goal kicking, suspect. Discipline, oh yeah, that shoe's still flying, suspect. So I think Florida got caught up in this, in all seriousness. They overlooked LSU because they knew what they had on the horizon. It was like, it's LSU, they're not that good. We just seen them get boat raced. We should be able to do the same thing. Let's go out here, punch them in the mouth, get it over with early, and start putting in the backups and getting ready for Alabama. Unfortunately, this is why we play the games. And we seen that didn't happen when they got on the field. Now, not to harp on that no longer, we know what happened. Florida lost by a field goal. I think the game was 37-34.
Yep.
So he lost by a field goal, I think a 55-yarder from things named K
57. Yep, 57.
57, okay.
It was good from like 70. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, he put, hey, listen, when you hear a player say, I'm going to give it my all, I mean, he could have probably pulled an earlobe muscle, how much he gave it for that kick. But he gave it his all. They won the game. And I would tell people this. I do think Florida should have blown them out. But I also don't think this is the worst loss ever, because at the end of the day, LSU is a top 5 recruiting class. On Friday, the last Tuesday, I gave you their recruiting classes. They recruit very well. Very well. So even just because we don't know the players don't mean they're bombs. That just means they thought they was going to work their way up in the process. Sorry for you, COVID. Go ahead, get up in there and get you some of that action. And that's what happened. Very unacceptable about Florida. Now, I thought this loss was going to knock some dust off what we're gonna roll into as far as the committed rankings, and then SEC championship week. But they sitting where they're sitting. Florida, I'm telling you right now, do not bring that crap to Atlanta. Do not bring what you left. Leave that at home. Leave that at the Swamp. Unless you want to. I'm just saying. Unless you want to look like Georgia against LSU last year, or Oklahoma against LSU last year, leave it at home. You better come to play. You can come with none of that barbecue backyard bull crap you came with. So, enough about that game. I would like to talk to the lawn care service for Arkansas right quick. I wasn't the happiest about that field condition. That field condition almost cost us some players. I thought Najee Harris' leg was going to pop in 3 places because he can't even cut because the grass is so ridiculous. Then, Devontae, Nick, I understand we're trying to help Devontae with this Heisman thing, but come on, man. We got to take him from back there with the kickoff returns. Did we not just see what happened to Jaden Waddle? Like, come on, man. We got to knock that off. Either way, Devontae run one back, pretty ball to the house, Heisman moment. And then I think the very next possession, Alabama had the ball. Some dude come out here doing a gator roll. Did you see that gator roll?
No.
Yo, so some cat number 40, like 45, 46, something like that for Arkansas, comes in here and do a gator roll on Devontae. We weren't happy about that. Nick definitely wasn't happy about that. Some bull crap. On top of the fact that we got to deal with these subpar conditions of the field. The field was terrible. It was downright. Everybody was sliding. Even the wind was sliding off the grass. It was ridiculous. It was slip and slide. I thought I was looking at a high-level ice skating event the way they were sliding out there. Not a football game. These boys out here looking like Christy Hamaguchi out there. Like, this is not it. They need to fix their grass. That's all I need to really say about them, because we smoked them with just the run game. We didn't do a whole lot through the air and still took care of them. So, God bless them. You know what I'm saying? I like them bacon bits in my salad. So that's kind of what I've seen as far as the SEC. Of course, I watch a lot of SEC. But then did I mention Miami? Let me go ahead and bag it off to Miami.
I hate to see it.
Somebody want to tell me about the Hurricanes. Oh, hey, they only losses to Clemson. They've been looking good since that.
I had to ask last week, Miami. I was trying to be impartial. I was trying to be a good, non-biased, guy here. I was trying to give y'all an inch of love, and you go out there and you just lay the biggest egg. They're still trying to crane that thing out of Hard Rock. No, please go ahead though. No.
I'm just saying. I ain't say no names, but somebody tried to tell me, they lost to Clemson. That's not a bad loss, which I agree. That's not a bad loss. But I said, I just don't see nothing with this team that makes me believe they're real. And sure enough, they go out here against a team that I also didn't believe that was all that real, because I was hearing how powerful this offense was. And every time I stopped to watch North Carolina, that offense wasn't powerful enough. No, maybe unfair. I compared them to Notre Dame defense that seemed to be legit this year, but still wasn't good enough. And they lost to Florida State. So I didn't think nothing of it. And then I come out here and they have 2 running backs that go for 200 yards. Not not with the chain. Oh, 2 guys.
One went for 300.
Look at that. I try not to give y'all a black eye.
Al, real quick, I'll give you the stats real quick. Michael Carter, 24 carries, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a 65-yard run. Javonte Williams in the backup role, apparently, 23 carries, 236 yards, 3 touchdowns, also a 65-yard run, an FBS record for a duo of running backs in a single game. They averaged 10 to 12 yards every time they touched the ball.
Yo. Yeah. If Manny Diaz wasn't so new, I think his ass would have got fired too.
I hear he's coached defense before. I've heard.
Listen, I ain't gonna knock him because we play Ole Miss and it looked like not one person on the staff played coach defense before. So it happens, right?
Week 1 though.
What I think it was week 3, but still,
Oh yeah.
it happens, right? It happens. Man, I'm telling you like this. You done soaked up all the glory by going to Florida. We rejuvenated the program, blah, 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 blah. You got, from what I see, you got next year. You come out here with this same bull crap, you're probably gone. And I'm telling you right now, Manny, from one minority to another one, you better be in that on the phone telling God dog it, what's the quarterback name? Slipped my mind.
From Miami,
Yes.
De'Aaron King.
You better be telling Derek King, we need you back. Matter of fact, you need to be telling every draft eligible player on there, outside of the one defensive player that's supposed to be good. He probably go to the draft.
I hope he wasn't playing last night. I don't think he was. I think he opted out at the start of the season.
All right, so he already gone, so you ain't got to worry about him. But the rest of them, I would seriously be talking to these guys and saying, listen, let's bring it back one more year and let's try this again. And I think we can get better results if we do this for another year. One thing, and I would give Miami this credit. I know I gave them a lot of crap, but I got to be real. Miami was put together through the transfer portal. And the problem with that is when you put together through the transfer portal, now Manny Diaz get players from all over the world that he has to reteach stuff to. The problem with that is in this COVID year, you had to do a lot of teaching over Zoom, whether you got them from the transfer portal, whether you recruit them, whatever. You had to do a lot of coaching over Zoom. So not only do I got to break bad habits, I got to do it over Zoom. Then I got to get you in the facility and then see if you changed into those habits. That's a lot for a first-year coach, to bring in all those guys. And I'm going to give – that's why I said Manny Diaz to get another year. If he could bring those guys back now they all have 1 year in his system. And like I tell people, I kind of compare it to the LSU. Now, before you say, oh, hell no. The reason I compare it to LSU, and I'm not saying Miami will be a title contender, but what I will say is they can have a marked difference from 1 year to another. Because if you remember the year before LSU won the championship, we beat them like.
Yeah, they had Joe Burrow at the time, so yeah.
And they had Joe Burrow. But what I liked about it was all those guys stuck around for another year, and look what it came out to be. Sprinkle in some Joe Brady, but still, that's what it came out to. I think Miami has that possibility to do that if they can keep their guys around. So enough about them. Let's hear how you felt about the weekend as a whole, and then we'll jump into this playoff ranking and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you covered it pretty well. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. I mean, the Florida LSU game is the biggest thing that sticks out to me. I think that for the Gators, that was it was a rough weekend to be a Gator. Period. I mean, between that and then on Saturday morning, the basketball player Keontae Johnson going down. We'll tell you a little about him later on, but. That really, I think that kind of had a cloud hanging over. These guys all know each other, so it was kind of rough. And then they went to this game. I think part of it was overlooking LSU, but I also think a lot of this was LSU was getting sick of the noise. I think if you look at it, after y'all went ahead and scholarship checked them, I think the noise got deafening around Louisiana, which was just, this ain't it. Coach O ain't it. Y'all ain't it. Your one-year wonders. Your flash in the pans. These players are really good players. They got sick of hearing that. And sometimes teams they get an opportunity to correct the narrative or to kind of push back on the narrative, and they do it. And they kind of galvanize around that. And I'll tell you, Ed Orgeron is only the coach of LSU because of the players. The players a few years ago basically about to stage a riot to have him become the head coach. I mean, remember, he was the interim coach. He wasn't even supposed to be the guy after Les Miles left. And they basically were like, no, this is our coach. We all can kiss our – I mean, we're not playing otherwise. And they kept him around. And then, of course, what happened last year and all that. But these players love this guy, okay? And I think they had an opportunity. They had one chance left to go out and beat a really good team and say, no, we're not as bad as our record is. And I think, like you said, a lot of the guys that didn't want to be there, that had already checked out, they opted out, they moved on. And then you had a lot of young, hungry freshmen that are all 4 and 5 stars. I mean, like you said, the recruiting classes are amazing. There was a lot of talent on that field and a lot of freshmen who really haven't panned out to this point so far really stepped up. And you also have the factor of a quarterback that's taking his first career start, and sometimes that's a disaster. Sometimes it's we don't know anything about this kid. The defense doesn't know what to do. I mean, Todd Grantham made a great defensive coordinator anyway, even when he knows who he's playing against. You add him in the first time, unknown mystery box quarterback, and you see what happens. But I think for Florida, it was a lot of things went wrong. I mean, nothing went right. You had, Kyle Trask played his worst half of the football as a Gator, period. The Kyle Pitts thing being held out of the game, it seems like it was just Dan Mullen's decision to just leave him out of the game. That's bad. That's a bad message you're sending to your team. And you're also going to tell that kid your last game in the swamp, you can't play it because we want you for next week in bubble wrap. Like, come on. That's complete crap. You play to win games, period, the end. And and of course the Marco Wilson thing, the whole shoe throwing personal foul, that was the big ticket of the night. The Gators late in the game did get a stop. They were going to get the ball back, probably kick a field goal, win the game, and they got a stop on third down. Marco Wilson, who after he had tackled the guy, and kind of wrapped him up by the legs, the guy's shoe came off and he just picked it up and he chucked it like 25 yards. The fans were throwing flags. There's so many flags hitting the field. LSU gets a new set of downs. They get the field goal range, and the kicker kicks it from the parking lot and makes it. And from there, it was just karma. I mean, it looked like pure karma. The Gators got back in field goal range. Their automatic kicker misses. You take the L. That really, I mean, as far as Florida's goes and regular season losses, that's probably the worst one they've had since Georgia Southern a few years ago. I mean, that was a bad weekend for them. But other than that, I mean, I truly hate to see Miami lose in that fashion. I really do. It breaks my heart. I'm so sorry for the Hurricanes. My condolences. North Carolina lost to Florida State. I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm just saying you probably shouldn't let North Carolina Tar Heels put up 778 yards. And that wasn't even Sam Howell. I mean, he had a nice game, but I mean, you could at least tell me if Sam Howell throws for 500 yards. He's a good quarterback. Like, okay, whatever. Those things happen. But to get ran over like that, there's no other excuse than that team quit. I mean, they quit. Flat out, period, and mail it, send it. Can't tell me anything else. Those guys quit, and that's a problem for Manny Diaz and this team. But like you said, I do believe they are going to still be a contender in the ACC. They're going to be good. And if they can get Derek King to come back for another season, he'd be smart too, by the way, with the quarterbacks in this class. They might have something next year. They might have something a little special depending on how it goes. But yeah, other than that, I mean, the other big thing, I guess the Gus Malzahn thing stuck out. I mean, I don't think you got a chance to hit on it,
right.
but Auburn after 8 years, Malzahn had the 2013 championship run, fell just a little bit short, and he had a lot of years where he just hung on, a couple Iron Bowls that were thrillers. I'll leave it at this, the SEC West is such a gauntlet because of Alabama and Nick Saban. Gus Malzahn in his career was 3-5 versus Alabama. The rest of the SEC was 3-60. So I'm thinking the SEC West. Yeah, I think the rest of the SEC, it may be the SEC whole or just the West. I think it might be the whole SEC at this. I don't remember the stat exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was something like 3-60. So I mean, I get it was probably time to move on. You hitched your wagon to Bo Nix, and that thing crashed and went off a cliff and killed everybody on it. But who else is going to come in there and beat Nick Saban every other year? Good luck. Good luck is all I'm saying.
Exactly.
So that was probably the biggest things of the weekend to me. There was some other things, here and there. But let's go ahead and get into these rankings, man. I really want to kind of get into these. So
let's talk.
Yeah. So real quick, let's lay the land real quick. Your new college football playoff rankings as of 7 p.m. Alabama, of course, holds on to their top spot. Notre Dame, number 2. Clemson, number 3. Ohio State, number 4. All the top playoff teams, only Alabama and Florida played. No surprises here. A&M also at 5. The big changes, Iowa State moves into number 6. And Florida only sliding back 1 to number 7. Georgia, number 8, and poor Cincinnati, they get booted all the way to the back of the bus at number 9. And Oklahoma is going to round out number 10, who's going to play Iowa State this coming weekend, Drake. So we talked about it a little bit in the pre-show. We're talking about scenarios at this point. Who's going to be all in, who has a chance. Obviously our top 4 teams have a great chance, obviously. But then you would think right now A&M has still a path, if there's chaos. You would think that so A&M is like your first out looking in that safely, has a way they could get in theory.
They
right?
have a path, yeah.
Right. But I guess the question now with Florida going to 7, do they have a path? I mean, is this still in play for Florida if they could beat Alabama this coming weekend?
I think in theory, it's very hard to convince someone that an SEC champion don't have a path into the playoffs, because every year since we've known, the SEC champion has always had a path.
Right.
But to caveat that, you got to say, but it's never been a year a 2-loss team has been in. Okay. Then you say, well, when the hell have we had a 2-loss conference champion? We had a 1-loss conference champion. Have we really had a 2-loss conference champion? Okay.
I don't think we've ever taken a 2-loss. I don't think a 2-loss team's ever made the playoff at all. As far
No,
as
that's what I'm saying. Never,
right.
never. So no, it's a bunch. So my point is, you're gonna have a bunch. You're gonna have a few tendencies that haven't happened to this point that's gonna be broken. If Florida was to win, I think Florida would be the first SEC champion not to make the playoffs, because I think the 2-loss thing will overweigh the fact that they're the SEC champions this year. Why do I say that? The problem with Florida is this. If you didn't have Alabama in your way, yeah, you probably could make the playoffs as a 2-loss champion. The problem is, even with the SEC championship crown, you're not the best SEC team. So I think the only thing Florida has done is probably crippled the chance for 2 SEC teams to get in. Because now, yes, is it a path for Texas A&M? Yes. Unfortunately, that path needs help from the other elite teams. Right. Whereas before this weekend, all Florida had to do was beat Alabama, and they was in. Now it's not that clear. So because
we're both running real quick. We're both running with the premise that Alabama's in no matter what. I mean, unless they get just absolutely just beat to pieces, which isn't going to happen. Any reasonable world, Alabama's in no matter what, right?
Yes.
So that kind of takes a spot no matter what. But then your rest of your teams, there's some paths for chaos. I guess that's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay, because I am under the belief that Alabama and Notre Dame are 2 spots. So no matter what happens this weekend, Alabama and Notre Dame both are in. Mm-hmm. What say is you?
I guess what you're posing is, if Notre Dame were to lose to Clemson, I guess the question really becomes: how do you stack a 1-loss Notre Dame who loses to Clemson after they've already beat them versus a 2-loss conference champion? Because at this point, your next 2 teams are Iowa State and Florida that could potentially, be 2-loss conference champions. Let's just say, like, for now, they both have the potential to do it, and they would both have beat top 10 teams to do so. So in that case, to me, it still matters how bad Notre Dame loses. If Clemson goes out there and beats them all up and down the field, I'm going to be suspect of Notre Dame. Because like we talked about in the pre-show, I still look at Notre Dame's schedule and it's not great. Now, you made some good points. You kind of convinced me that, hey, it's better than it looks, and I do agree. But, I mean, Notre Dame, outside of Clemson, they don't really have a great win. North Carolina is their best win. So, if you're stacking them versus a 2-loss conference champion like a Florida or Iowa State, particularly in Florida, if they can beat Alabama, that's a big win. I mean, that is a huge, huge win. And their other 2 losses are by a field goal. So in kind of freak sort of accidents, where they fumbled against A&M on the game-winning drive, and then against LSU, they had to get a personal foul that extended that game and gave them a chance. I mean, if Marco Wilson doesn't chuck that guy's shoe, Florida's going to win that game. 99 out of 100 times. So but at the same time, they lost to freaking LSU. So
So I want to stick to the premise of what you said. Okay, let's talk about best wins. Let's stick to the premise of best wins. Notre Dame best win would be Clemson, but then let's say turn around, Clemson best win would be Notre Dame. All right, cool. What would be Ohio State best win?
Indiana. Okay, I still think Indiana's a better win. Because at the time, Indiana was full strength, and they've proven they're a pretty solid football team, even over Northwestern. Because I guess what we're running with here is that so Ohio State is, again, another wild card. Because they lose to Northwestern, they're absolutely out.
They're out.
Northwestern's top 15 team, and they're going to have that 6th game. I don't think there's any world where a 2-loss conference champion can jump Ohio State with 6 wins in their conference championship. I still don't think that's enough of a gap. I get that 3-game gap is meaningful, but I would probably get that argument if you were talking about 1-loss Notre Dame and undefeated Ohio State. If just, let's say, somehow the scenario was those teams fought for 1 playoff spot, then I think the 3-game difference or 4-game difference matters. But I don't think it matters for that. But again, Ohio State can always be upset. I mean, if they get upset, which that's happened before with Ohio State, they've choked in some big games.
Listen, I just think, all right, Northwestern, enjoy the Rose Bowl. Like that's
It's right, and in most worlds, Ohio State's probably going to win. I mean, like we did this. We talked about pregame. What is the most likely scenario? Okay, number one, Alabama's going to beat Florida. I mean, in most
yeah,
worlds, Alabama's
yeah.
probably going to stomp Florida. They're probably going to.
Which
Florida hangs around for a half. Alabama does that thing where they snap their fingers and they're up by 4 touchdowns,
will
probably.
put Alabama in the 1 seed. So let's
Right.
say they would be in the 1 seed. Okay.
Clemson is probably going to beat Notre Dame in the rematch. Trevor Lawrence is going to come in. That team's going to play different. It's very hard to beat a team twice in the same season. So I think that in likely scenarios, Clemson's going to beat Notre Dame. And then Ohio State is
Clemson,
likely
2
to
seed.
wax Northwestern. And that's probably going to put them at the 3 seed.
Yeah, 3
So then
seed.
your 4 seed is going to come down to Notre Dame versus A&M at 5, Iowa State at 6, and then Florida would be out at 7. Let's just, And then again, if Iowa State doesn't win, and they can't beat Oklahoma, which, by the way, Oklahoma's a good chance to beat Iowa State as well.
Yes.
Oklahoma's number 10. They've been playing way better football down the stretch than they were earlier in the season. There's a very good chance Iowa State and Florida both lose, and this is a non-conversation. And then you're just going to have A&M or Notre Dame. And I think in that case, the most likely debate next weekend is going to be Notre Dame or Texas A&M, right? A one-loss Notre Dame and a one-loss Texas A&M.
Okay, so I'm glad you did that. So yeah, bump everything else. Let's focus on that. So Notre Dame and Texas A&M, because that looks like the most likely thing, and that's a very good conversation.
It is, but I think it's an
good
easy one.
conversation.
I think Notre Dame's clearly going to keep their spot, right?
I mean, yeah, I can't go against what I just said, right? They'd be like, "Hey, man, what side you on?"
Right. Because
you're right.
Texas A&M doesn't have another ranked win besides Florida. I mean, I guess Florida is their best win. I mean,
yeah,
right, because they don't have another ranked win at all.
Right. And here's the thing. So people can say, okay, Texas A&M beat Florida. Florida was full of strength pretty much. They didn't miss a player that mean a lot. Like they was missing players, it was players we probably didn't even know about. But they had their full complement of players.
For Florida this weekend?
No, when they played Texas A&M.
Oh yeah, no, they had everybody for that game.
Right. All right. So cool. So boom. So that's a very good win for Texas A&M. And I tell people to look at the committee because the committee is still saying Florida is a good team. And they ain't just us. The committee only dropped them 1 spot.
Right.
And look who they lost to. So clearly the committee is valuing the SEC at a higher level than usual. They always value the SEC, but they really value them this year. Meaning the loss to Alabama would not be as ugly as if Clemson comes out here and put it on Notre Dame at full strength. Because now it's like, okay, this one team lost to Alabama. This one team lost to Clemson. Neither one of these teams are conference champions. They're both one-loss teams. That argument I think is fantastic. If I had to pick, I would probably pick Notre Dame simply.
Just real quick to clarify, in the scenario where Clemson beat them handedly, not like destroyed them, but like let's say a 17-point win, like a solid
17-point win, yeah,
just like a solid win, like
right. And because you also will have to look at when these games was played, because you would say this was the second game of the season when Alabama played Texas A&M. So
but
neither team
destroyed them. They put 50.
They destroyed them, but neither team. I mean, playing a team in the championship game and playing a team in the second week of the season is a marked difference in between that, right? Because teams get better as the season go, or they lose players as the season go. Either or, it's a big difference. It's a swing in momentum. So to me, it would just come down to how bad do you look at that loss to Notre Dame, and then how good do you look at that loss for Texas A&M to Alabama? And you have to figure it out. And like I said, I would put Notre Dame in just because Notre Dame has been more consistent, I think.
The win over Clemson counts for something, too. I mean, Clemson had a 5.5-star playing quarterback when Lawrence was out. So you can tell me about Lawrence being out and all that doesn't matter. But, I mean, the backup wasn't some guy in there with skinny arms Rob Lowe throwing 4 picks and crap in his pants. I mean, that kid played some really good football. He threw over 400 yards. So – so to me, like Notre Dame kind of has like half a loss in that scenario, not a full loss.
But right? Then the question could be asked: who played the tougher schedule throughout the year?
Right, and I think that's probably you could lean A&M because they're in the better conference. But outside of Florida, A&M's best win's Florida. Notre Dame's best win outside of Clemson, if you count that a wash, is going to be North Carolina, who's
Right.
number 15 on this. And we've seen North Carolina look great and look horrible.
Right.
So, I guess you could argue, but in the total body of work, I don't think there's oceans between a lot of the teams A&M beat and a lot of the teams that Notre Dame beat. There's some decent
Right.
ones, some bad ones.
Right. And that's what makes it a conversation.
Right.
That's what makes it, damn, that's crazy. Because I don't know what they would use to determine this. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine too. And this is the beauty of college football. This is why I love college football so much. This is the beauty of looking at, because even in the COVID year, we still found the way to put ourselves in a bind with this fourth spot, even if it goes as chart. As chart.
So you'll have, even as chalk, you'll have one argument, which will be Notre Dame or A&M. We both agree Notre Dame should get the spot in the case. But there's chaos. If Ohio State chokes, that opens up another spot. And one of these two-loss conference champions might have a big argument. If they can get big wins, especially I think even Florida is not out of this. I think with number 7, you're not out of it. I think at 8 or 9 or something like Cincinnati, they're out now. I don't care what they do against Tulsa. They're not. I'm sorry, it just sucks to suck. I hate that they were kicked so far out of these rankings through no fault of their own. But you're not, as a group of 5 team, you're not getting in the playoffs.
No.
And I don't mind that. I just wish the committee would just say, look, y'all go do your own thing. We don't want you. That's the message they're sending, which is fine.
I don't know if they got the money. I don't know. It's a whole money issue. But let's to keep it real to what you said. Honestly, is this between the top 7 teams? Once you get past Florida, I ain't trying to hear it. Georgia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, you got Indiana, Coastal Carolina, USC, Northwestern. And let me backtrack to USC a little bit while we talk about it. So earlier I was telling you how Keyshawn Johnson said that he didn't understand why USC is not getting any love for a playoff spot, but Ohio State is, when they're going to, for all intents and purposes, they're going to play about the same amount of games. I think Ohio State might have one more game than USC when it's all said and done. So he's saying he don't understand why is Ohio State getting the benefit of the doubt and USC is not.
They'll have the same amount of games. They both played 5.
Okay, that's the same amount. Okay.
USC is only going to the Pac-12 Conference Championship because Washington bowed out, though. So there's that.
Yeah, but Ohio State is only going because Big Ten changed their rules.
That's true. Okay. All right.
So, you know what I'm saying? So I kind of get, because he's saying, okay, if you're putting them in because of the blue blood talk, well, we USC. We be in blue blood talk as well.
It's ain't 2003. It's 2020, y'all. Ohio State's been a blue blood for the last 7 years. Y'all have been relevant since Reggie Bush. I don't. But I do. But it's really important. Go ahead, man. Yeah, go ahead. You're good. I had something I had to. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So no, I was just saying. So he has a point. Should USC be higher? I'm not the biggest fan of the Pac-12 conference, but then when you listen to it and you actually analyze it a little bit, he got a point. What the hell what has Ohio State done so much for us to automatic on forward them into the top 4?
They haven't, other than just be a brand name. That's really what it is. They beat Indiana. That's a nice win, but they're just a brand name. And I think the good argument is you can make is this weekend, Florida and LSU. I was arguing that they shouldn't even be playing those games. That Florida and Alabama should have a week off like everybody else does.
Yep.
I stood behind
Same
that.
thing the ACC did. Yep.
I feel like a jackass now because, what if Notre Dame or Clemson went out and flopped around and lost to Louisville or something? It's the same idea. So if Ohio State had actually played 10 games like everybody else has, would they have screwed up and choked along the way? Would a Michigan or a Penn State have just shocked them and beat them? A team that recruits well but is having a bad season. Gee, where did I just see that story? Huh? It's there is an argument to be made there, but at the same time, Ohio State played the schedule they had. They were ready to play all but one game, and it's hard because I think if you look at just pure eye test, they're still Ohio State. They still have Justin Fields. They still have Ryan Day. They still have Shaun Wade. They still have premium talent on both sides of the ball, and they've been a routine staple in the playoff for years now, where USC hasn't. But there is an argument. I mean, I think that it would be egregious to put a 2-loss conference champion over Ohio State, assuming they win the Big Ten. But it's one of those things in this wacky COVID year where it just kind of works out that way. It sucks, but
And that's another reason I think Ohio State is done if they lose. I don't care if it's one loss, because the committee is then going to say, okay, we gave you the benefit of doubt and you only played 5 games, and then you go and lose in game number 6.
right.
It's no way we're going to put you in front of Texas A&M and Florida, and at least they played double-digit games. Like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
And
So,
you out here flopping around with 5. So I think that will get held against them. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't think about that. And I think that's going to be I can't wait until, Saturday games happen, and then we sitting back here next Tuesday after Selection Sunday, because if everything pans out and we do end up with that, well, I'm going to tell you right now, if we end up with that little last matchup, Notre Dame between Texas A&M, I might have to call you up. We might have to go live. We might just have to.
We'll check it out. We'll check it out, but we'll see. It's gonna be close.
We might have to talk that talk.